Good evening, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to our June 17th council meeting. Please rise for the Pledge of Allegiance. Roll call.
Mr. Oja?
Here.
Mr. Meneghini?
Here.
Dr. Hayes?
Here.
Mr. Gottstein?
Here.
Mr. Babalani?
Here.
Before we enter into our regular meeting for this evening, we have a presentation under a committee meeting of the whole by Mr. Ray Sharp from the Houghton County Health. He's here to present to us the information on the road diet. After that, we'll have a discussion with the public. Everybody will be given a chance to give their opinion to the council. I just ask that you wait and don't yell out from your seat. Come up to the podium at the right time, and everybody will be given a chance to talk. With that, I'd like to introduce Mr. Ray Sharp.
Thank you, Mr. Oja. Wow, this is great to see so many people here. I did have a couple of handouts. One would be the slideshow. It's a brief slideshow, 13 slides. I'm sure I can do it in 13 minutes. But then there's another two-page handout, and I left a few copies up here. And perhaps if you want to see a copy of that, you can either we can give you the website information, or you could maybe come by the city office later and we can pick up a copy or something like that. So I do work for the health department. My office is in Hancock, and we're a 5-county health district. Norway is in the Dickinson Iron Health District, so it's one of our neighbors. But the reason I'm here really is not because I'm a traffic engineer or an engineer of any kind, but I do work with a lot of committees on transportation planning, several cities in my area, and I've gotten some training on this over the years, and am a trainer for the Michigan Complete Streets Institute. I came to talk to the council last year about how to think about accommodating the needs of all users in transportation planning, whether it's pedestrians, cyclists, transit users, private vehicles, truck and freight users, or emergency vehicles. They all, have their needs in roadway design. So I want to talk a little bit about something we call road diet, or what I like to call right-sizing a road. Figure out what the right size is for a road for the context that it's being used in. And I'm not here to advocate for any one type of a solution in your community. That's for communities to work out, to decide, and then when they can reach some kind of consensus based on what the experiences are of people that live in a community, that's the time to negotiate with MDOT about, to see what's possible and what can be done so that your roads are there to serve you the best way possible. So what I'm going to do is, you all know about non-divided highways, 4-lane roads with no divider in the middle, because that's what you have on US 2 running through town. So I'm not going to give you any information really about that. I'm going to talk about what a 4-lane to a 3-lane conversion is like, because that's one that you're not as familiar with. And this is not going to be based on my opinion. I'm going to try to stick to the studies that have been done on hundreds of road projects across the United States over the last 15 years or so, and take a look at those statistics in aggregate. Well, I didn't put too many statistics in, but I referenced a couple, and they're in reports from the U.S. Department of Transportation. And that's where I took this information from the Federal Highway Administration, which takes a look at crash data across the United States and figures out what's working, and tries to figure out the patterns behind the data. So, some of you can't see this at all, but I would encourage you to maybe swing around if that's okay. Is that okay for them to come? And maybe if you want to stand for a few minutes, I'll go through this as quickly as possible. And then when you make your comments, if you have any questions for me, I'm glad to respond to those as well, just based on what my experience has been with other communities. So road diets. I'm going to talk very quickly about what is a 4-lane to 3-lane conversion. What are the alleged benefits? Why are they safer for pedestrians? That's going to be pretty easy to prove. Now, the question, how do they affect traffic flow? So how do they affect the operation of the roadway for vehicles and traffic safety? I'll talk a little bit about that. Do they cause more traffic accidents or less traffic accidents? Do they cause bottlenecks with traffic, or do they make a better flow through town? I'll talk about that. And where are they recommended for? What types of roadways? By the way, as I drove here, I cut into US 2 in Crystal Falls. That's a 3-lane road. 1 traffic lane on each side. Center lane is a double left turn lane. That was Crystal Falls. Then I went through Florence, Wisconsin. That's a wide road, probably about 46-foot right-of-way, but it's 2 lanes, 30 miles an hour, and then on-street parking. And the on-street parking has an effect of calming traffic. People drive a little slower when their eyes are on cars that are parked on the side. And then I went in through Iron Mountain. Iron Mountain has a lot more vehicle trips per day than Norway because that's a real destination, kind of a hub, Iron Mountain, Kingsford. I don't have the data, but I'm going to guess it's 30,000 to 40,000 trips a day on US 2 and Iron Mountain versus 10,000 average trips per day in Norway. That was 5 lanes. That was 2 lanes in each direction, and it was a divided highway with a turn lane in the center. Then in the part of town, it goes down to 4 lanes, which is what you have here. Although, in that stretch of downtown Iron Mountain, where it's 4 lanes with oncoming cars passing like that, they have no left turns. It's straight only for a few blocks because a car stopping for a left turn would impede the traffic flow. And then I drove down into Norway, and I noticed that the speed, the signs generally ratchet down until you're about 30 miles an hour, but I observed the traffic as it was going through, and it was going through at about 40 miles an hour. So that's what I observed there. So what's a road diet? Well, the road diet means, the term means the road goes on a diet, so it goes from 4 lanes to 3 lanes. In this picture, there's a typical 4-lane to 3-lane. Here's 4 lanes, double center line, 1, 2, 3, 4. This is a little different because this also has 2 parking areas on the sides. In Norway, you go right out to the curb at about 44 feet. You're right out to a hard curb there. And I think on the north you have a sidewalk pretty much most of the way through, and not on the south side. When they went to 3 lanes here, that's about a 12-foot lane in the middle, a couple of about 11-foot travel lanes, so that's a turn lane in the middle, and it created a couple of 5-foot bike lanes, which was wide enough for them to stay out of the way of an swinging opening door. It was enough for a bike lane. Oh, one point on that. Road diets are relatively inexpensive compared to other types of pedestrian access or safe bicycling treatments, because sometimes they just require a can of paint. And if you're going to resurface a road, you have that decision afterwards where you're going to paint the lines. So it's not really an added expense like a lot of other things are. So here's another example, and same idea. 4 lanes, they can convert to 3 lanes, center turn lane, 1 traffic lane in each direction, and bike lanes. Or they can go with a little bit less margin on each side and put the extra distance into sidewalk area. So that's another example of a typical road diet. Here's a technical diagram, and you can see that you can do the math. Here's your 44-foot right-of-way on the road out to the curb, and here's 4 traffic lanes. You can see that these center lanes, those cars are divided only by 2 yellow lines, not by a grass strip or a guardrail or anything. And when they do the conversion, they've got a 12-foot double turn lane. And we'll talk about that. What's that like with left turners coming in, wanting to go in opposite directions and facing off? We'll talk about that in a minute. What does the data say about that? 1 travel lane in each direction, and they got about 5 foot on each side for other purposes. In this case, a bike lane. So that's the conversion from 4 lanes to 3 lanes. I know what a lot of you are thinking right now. Well, we've just gone from 4 lanes down to 2 lanes. We've lost half our highway. So we'll talk about that. What does that mean? Does that mean it's going to take you longer to get through town? Well, that's a good question. Here's another picture just to get the hang of this. 4 lanes. Here's 2 lanes, 1 in each direction, center turn lane. In that center turn lane, most of that was clear asphalt for left turns in either direction to go into these side driveways or roads. Right here they did a crosswalk, and they put a little, it's hard to see, but there's an island in there. So there's a raised island with a little vegetation in there cut down to street level where the crosswalk is. So they wanted a safe crosswalk. This is something I can imagine like out where your Main Street here and your Highway 2 come together, where you want people to be able to get from one side of the highway to the other safely for shopping, for going to school, to walk from their neighborhood over to here to pay their electric bill or whatever it might be. So what happens with, as we're going to see in the next slides, I think, is when you have 4-lane, that's a lot of traffic lanes for a pedestrian to go across. When you reduce it to 2 traffic lanes, you look left for this lane, you get to your refuge island, and you're safe. Then you look to the right before you cross that lane. Well, here's an example of that. You can see here's the bike lane, here's the traffic lane, here's that center turn lane, but they put a little grass island in there, and that's your pedestrian refuge. So, again, if I'm a pedestrian, I have to look in this direction and get halfway across, then look in that direction. I'm only looking for one car at a time because the cars aren't able to pass each other. And you can imagine how that's safer for a pedestrian. That pedestrian has to cross 11 feet of traffic instead of 44 feet now in one run. A lot of the complete streets, when we say it's about accommodating all road users, 30% of the citizens, the residents of a community do not drive. They're people under 16 that don't have a license. They're older people or retired people or people with a handicap that makes it difficult for them to drive. So 30% of your population don't drive. And this kind of a crosswalk kind of helps to meet their needs. The question is, how much is going to detract from the needs of the other 70%? We'll talk about that in just a second. Here's what MDOT did in Houghton, near where I live. So you used to come blowing into Houghton at 55 miles an hour. You go through Chassell, pick up speed again, go 55, 60, up along Portage Lake, go around the big curve towards Michigan Tech, and you'd be going 55 or 60, and all of a sudden you've got Wadsworth Hall with 1,500 students on the left, and you've got the classroom buildings on the right, and people trying to jog across back and forth on a 4-lane highway. Well, what they did was they did 4-lane down to 2-lane. So here's where it goes down to 2-lane. It's coming this way into town. Here's the medians in the middle, and here's the safer crosswalk. So what MDOT did, they did this project about 4 years ago. It's worked out great. It's reduced traffic accidents and what's eliminated traffic accidents to pedestrians in this area. And so again, pedestrians have a refuge there, and then they only have to cross 1 lane of traffic at a time. Well, it's had another benefit for the city, is that when you're driving 55 and you put up a sign that says, you know, entering city slow to 40, well, you know how that is. You see that sign, you think about it, you start to ease off the gas a little, you're going 48, 47, 46. Another way to do that is to write more tickets. That will have some impact on slowing traffic. But the thing that calms traffic the most is putting that island out in the middle and one of those yellow signs that shows the island and the traffic lane going like that. That gets people's attention, and that really slows traffic down. It sets the whole scene for coming into the city of Houghton. And once you've slowed down to 30, you don't pick up speed after you pass that. You've already calmed down because you're in the city. Okay, I'm almost done here. I think I'm over halfway through. Here's another example of a safer pedestrian crosswalk. You have this example right outside on your Main Street here. It's called a bump out. That's where the curb comes out a little bit. They have parking in this example. You have this right across the street. You have that angled parking. But then where you have your crosswalk, you have the curb come out. And so you've reduced the pedestrian distance across here by having the curb come out on each side. But also what you've done is you allow, instead of having parking all the way through, you allow that pedestrian to come up to the edge of the parking car there, and he's visible to this driver now. So that's something that you could take a look at doing if you had a 4-lane to 3-lane conversion. You would have a place where you could have the curbs extend a little bit more if you were going to try to have a safe mid-block crossing somewhere in your downtown area. All right, another kind of pedestrian crash, then we'll get to the vehicle information. This is called a multiple threat crash, and this information comes from basically from the same place, from the counter, it's called countermeasures for safety, and administration. So this is one of their classifications of crashes, is the multiple threat crash. That's when you have two lanes of traffic going in the same direction. If I'm a pedestrian and I'm looking and I think, okay, that log truck's going pretty slow, and I've got time to go out, and he's actually slowing for me. I don't know if that would happen with a log truck, but it might happen with a school bus. Oh, they're slowing down for me. So here's the first line of traffic. I can get past that. And what happens when you don't have any visibility and you step into the second lane there? Bang. Because you didn't see that driver, and that driver didn't see you because you were behind the car. So this is called a multiple threat crash. And what's the solution? The countermeasure, reduce roadway width. For example, add sidewalks and bike lanes to a roadway by narrowing 4-lane undivided roadways to 2 through lanes plus a center 2-way left turn lane or raised median. So that's what we've been talking about. Now, I'm pretty sure people can understand that a 2-lane road or a 3-lane road is easier for a pedestrian to cross than a 4-lane. But let's talk now about what impact does that have on the cars. Okay. Now I realize that you have 55 miles an hour going to 40, 45 or 40, and then you're down to 30. And also, we all know that if it's posted at 30, a lot of people drive at 40. And if it's posted at 40, people drive at 50. And if it's posted at 55, they drive at 63, because you don't get a ticket for those first 8 miles per hour. So I know about that. But I don't think that people are driving 55 through your downtown area on Highway 2. No, because they're not. That's not what I observed. But for a 3/4 mile an hour stretch at 55 miles per hour, that takes 49 seconds. I did a little math. If you're going 35 miles per hour, it takes 77 seconds, a minute and 17. That's 28 seconds lost. So that could take you 28 seconds longer to get from Escanaba to Iron Mountain. Now, but if you're stuck behind a car in the left lane, you have 4 lanes right now. If you're on the right, you might go right on through. It's about every 10th car in that left lane isn't going through, though. It's stopping to make a turn. And every time you get stuck behind one of those and it stops, then you've got to swerve over to the right lane. You may have to stop, check your mirror, check around. It may take you 10 or 15 seconds. You're thinking about going, oh, and then the guy turns, then you have to accelerate again. You may have lost your 28 seconds sitting in that left lane. But the bigger issue is when you have a center turn lane, a shared center turn lane, and 1 traffic lane in each direction, not only are you traveling at a constant speed without getting stuck behind someone's stop, because the turners are all moving into a special lane for them out of your way, but also your chance of being hit in a crash is reduced by 29%. This is based on thousands and thousands and thousands of vehicles traveling through hundreds of 4-lane to 3-lane conversions where the federal government has done data on the before and after. Okay? 29% less crashes. The reason, primarily because you're not changing lanes. The secondary reason is because there's slower vehicle speeds, because the speed is set by the car in front of you. You're not in two lanes parallel, which is pretty much like being on a drag strip. Because, right? Because maybe you want to speed past that guy before he makes his left turn, you want to shoot around and hurry up and get there. Well, you don't do that when you're only 1 through lane each way. There's no speeding because somebody is going to be going at that slower speed and taking those 20 seconds away from you. Less crashes, less severe car crashes, because you're less likely to have those cars going at 30, 40, 50 with just 2 little yellow lines of paint in between them. You have less head-ons, less side swipes, okay? And you have less rear ends at speed. You have less times where someone's going 40 and a person stops to make a left turn and they don't notice because they're distracted. Bang. Okay. And here's the one that I'm interested in. Pedestrians are much more likely to survive if they're struck by a slower vehicle. Because if you're a pedestrian and you get hit by a car going 40 miles an hour, you have an 80% chance of dying. But if that car is going 20 miles an hour, you only have a 10% chance of dying. And the thing is, if the vehicle speed is down to about 35 miles an hour, and that little kid runs out to chase a ball or something, and you hit the brakes, you may be down to 20 miles an hour by the time you hit that kid, and they've got a pretty good chance of surviving at the slower speeds. Now, where can you do this? Obviously, we're not going to do it on Interstate 75. So what do the data tell us? From MDOT, what do they advise, and also from the feds that do these studies? If you have 20,000 vehicles or less, average daily traffic, you ever wonder every once in a while, we see those little boxes on the side of the road and it has one of those strips coming out? They're out there counting how many vehicles go by. And they have a certain way they do that. They count a few different days of the week, a few times a year, to determine what the average daily traffic is on that highway. So, when you're under 20,000 average daily traffic on a roadway, the U.S. Department of Transportation says consider a 4-lane or 3-lane. It's usually a pretty good idea. At 15,000 or less, it's almost always a good idea. Quoting from this study that I have right here, that you can get from the Federal Highway Department website, and it's titled Proven Safety Countermeasures, Road Diet. They say that at 15,000 or less, road diets have very good results for safety, operations, and livability. Safety, so that's the driver's safety and the pedestrian safety. Operations, that means that they don't affect traffic flow that much, because what you lose in the 4 lanes to 2 lanes, you gain by having everyone moving at a uniform speed and not having to start and stop. So you don't lose much on the operations side. And livability, you create a downtown area that's easier for people to go shopping and walk to church and walk to school and, feel like they're not like on a drag strip. US 2 in Norway is an average daily traffic of 10,300 on each end of the downtown area and somewhat less in the middle. So it's definitely in that area where a city should be looking at a 4-lane, 3-lane to see if it's right for them. So, the old term is road diet, and by old I mean 10 years old. I like this new term I've been seeing is right sizing. Find the right size for every road. The right size over in Iron Mountain, because there's so many people coming from so many different directions to shop there and going back and forth all day, is 5 lanes. The right size here, it might be less. Here's a nice road that I found that has about 10,000 vehicles a day on it. This is East Boulevard in Charlotte, North Carolina. You can see the center turn lane. You can see a 1-through lane each direction and a nice crosswalk with that planted area out there. Very similar to what you have here. Mixed, you have some businesses here. And I saw this picture along with the term right sizing. So to summarize, right sizing benefits. Reducing the number of through lanes minimizes the lane changes and it reduces speeding. Having a dedicated left turn lane reduces crashes and improves traffic flow. Because when you want to turn, you're in a turn lane. When you want to go straight, you're in a go straight lane, and you don't mix up the two. Centered pedestrian refuge islands are a good idea. If you want people to connect so that your city is not divided like Berlin with the Berlin Wall. The extra width that you gain could be used for wider shoulders. And slower speeds and improved vehicle and pedestrian safety create a more walkable community where people choose to live, walk, and work and shop. And by shop, I mean that I think if you go, just from what I've seen in other cities where I've seen really vibrant shopping areas where they have the 3-lane treatment, is more people will be able to stop and shop here instead of just blowing right on through to get to Walmart over in Iron Mountain. That's my opinion from what I've seen in a lot of other places. That's it. That's all I've got to say for now, but I'm happy to answer questions.
Well, first question I would have was something you just said. If you're in a go straight lane, you're going straight. If you're in a turning lane, you're turning.
Yes.
What happens if you're turning right? And when you're coming in from Iron Mountain, we have a number of businesses right in a row where you're going to be making potentially right-hand turns from Bank, Credit Union, Thirsty Whale, Garden Place, Eye Doctor, a number of them. Now you're stopping everybody behind you just because you're turning right. And if you're somebody, if you turn slow, you're gonna block the traffic behind you.
That's true. So there's trade-offs. Now, a right-hand turn, though, unless someone's blocking the parking lot, you can proceed fairly well in a right-hand turn, whereas a left turn, you stop and you wait for oncoming traffic. So you have the right-of-way.
Right, but I think we probably all have been behind the senior going to the bank who stops in US 2 right now.
Yeah,
Now you can go around them.
you can.
With this, you're blocking everybody else now.
You are. When you go down to one through traffic lane in each direction, whoever is in front of you determines how fast you will go. You have to give up a little control for the next 2 minutes of your life, and that's exactly true. You have a valid point. When you have 2 lanes going the same direction and someone is slowing to make a right turn and there's 3 or 4 cars and you see that happen, you can swerve around to the left. So that is true. I'll concede that point.
Ray, on the traffic, when you cut it from 4 lanes down to 2, you said that every 10th car turns left?
Well, I just made that up. That doesn't come from a study.
Well-
That's my experience.
Okay,
I'll acknowledge that one. That one didn't come from a study. It
Okay,
depends
so-
obviously on the neighborhood and what are the destinations on the left.
so how do you feel when you put it into 2 lanes, you're probably dragging at least, I would think, 35% more traffic into that just 1 lane? How do you feel a pedestrian's gonna have a better chance of crossing with 35% more traffic added because you dropped that other lane? They're gonna have to run like hell to get across the road,
In the through lane or the center lane?
in the through lane.
Yes, you are putting more traffic into the through lane.
So you're gonna have a little bit less chance to cross because you got a lot more traffic,
Well,
pedestrian-wise.
the studies show, I mean, there's 2 issues. One, the traffic should slow down a little. Where you have it marked for 30 right now, I'm going to guess that the 85th percentile, based on time of day, not like 10 minutes before school starts where there's a lot of congestion, but most times of day, I'm going to guess the 85th percentile speeds around 40. And I'm just making these numbers up. This is not a study. And it's going to drop to probably 35 when you do a road diet because, you know, it's the psychological effect of being in that 1 lane with everybody, plus some of the effect of following the car. Okay, so the traffic's a little slower. But your point is, there's more cars in 1 line, there's less likely to be a gap.
Yes.
You know,
To cross,
it's a trade-off.
pedestrian.
All I know is that the studies have shown that it significantly reduces the pedestrian deaths.
Have they looked at all on, like, for us, Norway, we have a lot of offset drives. So even that left turn lane, you could get cars going head-on into it. Because we have a lot of short-distance offset drives between Stone Road Coffee and Dairy Queen. Or where the driveways aren't that far apart on opposite sides of the road.
Yeah, so.
Have you looked at it, has there been any looks at cities like ours that have a lot of offset drives coming in? Because most of ours aren't parallel across, they're slightly offset.
Yeah, so your concern is that 2 cars are going to line up there and you have to get past each other then to make.
You'll have two
turns.
making it in the same spot,
Yeah.
and they both want to make left-hand turns basically past each other.
Well, that's where I'm not qualified to answer that question for 2 reasons. One, I've driven through town a few times and looked around. So these are general information. 2, you got to take that to MDOT then, and you got to, talk to them about that.
I just didn't know if you had seen anything where there was a lot of offset as opposed to parallel driveways.
You know, what I know in general is that the places that have done this, and I've seen it, well, yeah, I was just in Louisville, Kentucky, big metropolitan area, but I was on a commercial road that looked busier than Norway. This is, again, just an educated guess. It was a main arterial in a big city, and it had mixed housing, neighborhoods, restaurants, boutiques, shops, and they had the 3-lane, they had the road diet. And there were a lot of driveways on both sides, and it seemed to be working well. That's anecdotal. That's not a science-based answer.
I can't see where the bike path is gonna be beneficial alongside the highway. I mean, I wouldn't wanna be riding my bike there unless I really had to with no curbing.
Well, right now you have 4 lanes that go right out to the curb, right?
Yes.
So if I was a through rider, let's think first about that, and then let's think about people that live in town. If I was a through rider on US 2, There would be no shoulder at all. I'd be right in the traffic lane with a logging truck up between me and a hard curve. So it creates a shoulder there, a place to get off the road.
Well, I would think you'd be better off to put a bike path up on the curb, on the right-of-way, on one side of the road, and then utilize the other side for walking. You know, because
That sounds good. That sounds good to me.
and as far as the shops, I can see we're downsizing, going on the, to a 3-lane where you had a bunch of small shops, like if you were up in Sault Ste. Marie or, you know, downtown Iron Mountain. I don't think that that's best for them either up there. But when you got a lot of big shops, typically you don't see people dragging their bags from Family Dollar. You don't see somebody walking to Lawfom's. You don't see somebody walking to Paula's place up there. I mean, basically, these people are all driving. And, you know, if you got just your small little shops, I can see where it might be beneficial then. But people, right now, I would guess to say there's probably, in a week, you might see 50 people walking up the side of that road.
Well, I caution making decisions about a more walkable or bikeable roadway based on just how many people you observe walking or biking on that now. Because I would propose that when you have a more walkable arrangement there, you would have more walkers. And I also know that within a city, you know, the size of Norway, I mean, this is a national statistic, but it applies to your question. Something like 70% of the car trips in America are under 2 miles. Now, I'm not saying that all people in Norway are going to park their car at one side and just walk around town always, all seasons. But I think that more people would be able to walk more safely. Kids going to school, people that are shopping up and down the street. Some people are going to continue to drive.
You had said in there, from the statistics you saw when they went to this, traffic continued to flow. They would flow well through it.
Yes.
Did you see the study by MDOT of the 24 sites in Michigan, where it noted if you're over 10,000, it creates significant delays in traffic flow?
Well, I've seen a different study. I've seen MDOT recommendations that they shouldn't do it over 20,000. I've been on some roadways that are around 15,000 in Lansing where they made the change, and they're very satisfied with what they've done. Ann Arbor as well.
Okay, 'cause we got a thing in our email from, Ray had put it onto the council and in our packet from and it was an MDOT study done by MSU.
Yeah.
That it said if you're over 10,000, it created significant delays
Well,
in traffic.
you know, how significant can a delay be on a 3/4 mile stretch, I would ask? On a 10-mile stretch, that might be significant. It might be 5 minutes. You know, on a short stretch, it might be 30 seconds. So, you know, I would think about that. I would maybe talk to the guy that has looked at all the studies in the UP from MDOT is Vince Bevins, and maybe he would be the guy. He's not necessarily the project engineer on the repaving in town, but he's kind of their go-to guy out of Escanaba for any pedestrian enhancements in the UP. So, you know, again, these are national statistics. I don't have a qualified opinion on what the change would be. I'm opening it up for the discussion. I think, you know, and I would also say, if a community split 50-50 on something, don't make the change. You've got to form a consensus. You've got to talk to somebody that says, oh yeah, you know, if someone from MDOT came and had a work session with you and said, well, this is the perfect place to do that, then I would say, okay, well, you know, tell me why. Where did you see it work? So, you know, like I say, that's my disclaimer. I'm not a traffic engineer. I've compiled some examples here, but I can't tell you what to do in your community.
Yeah, okay, and
Yeah.
I was just gonna add with that, with the one from MDOT, the crash change, you had 29%.
Yes.
From what, they didn't give any percentages or numbers in what I had seen, but they had talked about, it's variable site to site, but in a lot of cases it was negligible. It could have been because of reduced speeds, it could have been other factors, not just the road diet that created this. And in talking with, like our police chief, he agrees there will be some reduction in some types of crashes, but he's concerned about other types of crashes we'll see more of.
I guess I would like to see the statistics that we had when we put the light in up by Citgo, just the people turning there. From what I remember, there was quite a few rear-end crashes. And people trying to speed, like you said, to get into the other lane, I think that we're gonna have with the additional traffic in those one lane each way, it's not gonna be, I don't think it's gonna be feasible.
Well, we go down to one lane each way in Houghton on US 41, but there's no center lane. And we get a lot of rear end crashes because of all the traffic on College Avenue between downtown and the college, but there's no turn lane. So, but that's a whole different question.
But I
It's
mean,
2 lane.
you know, in Houghton, you probably have more foot traffic crossing the road in one day than we have all year.
Well, yeah, that Wadsworth
You
Hall
know.
crossing, because you have
Yeah.
McNair and Wadsworth coming to one spot across from Fisher,
Yeah.
that was a big pedestrian. They needed to do something.
They needed that there. But our crashes are farther down and going into town, past all the fraternities, because if one person wants to turn left on Agate, they stop everything. That's what you get with the center turn lane. But, like I say, you may be trading one type of crash for another. Nationally, 29% reduction, but every roadway's gonna be different.
I would think that slowing the traffic down would stop potential death as good as putting in the road diet.
Yeah.
And then the only thing you'd be lacking would be the bike path. And I mean, I don't know how many log trucks yous have going through Houghton, but I wouldn't want to ride my bike every day through town here with no curbing, with the amount of log trucks being the paper mill is right here.
Now, over in Crystal Falls, where they have the 3-lane, on the, not on the east side of town, but on the west side of town and out to where the two highways divide, they have a separated bike path, like you're talking about, above the curbs. They have a side path for bikes, and then they have a 3-lane road also.
And then you can also factor in that the people that are trying to get off the side streets here, being we only have one traffic light in town, you're gonna have probably 35% more traffic with only one lane. How are the people gonna get onto the highway? You're almost gonna have to come to the main street on busy times to get at the light.
Okay,
Ray, I think the biggest thing to me is we have to get the speed limit lowered. And you cannot talk to MDOT on that. Like up by the Thirsty Whale up there, that's a 55 zone. So if it's 50, you're doing 60.
Right.
And that's where the sign says slow down to 40. And then you're almost all the way down to past the bank there. And you step out of the Thirsty Whale, which is right there, and you got traffic going by at 60 miles an hour. You get down here by Tavernini's on one side, Maxine's on the other, Mike's on Main, and Talon's. You get these loggers, trucks, bigger trucks going by at, even at 30, which very seldom do they do. That's spooky, because you've got so much room there, and that's scary. If the traffic can get slowed down, I'm saying try, which like hitting your head against the wall when you talk to MDOT at the viaduct up there. If they could get it down to 45, and then we'll have to get a hold of our police department and say, hey, if they're going 31 and a 30, nail them. They've got to crack down. That's the only way you're gonna slow the traffic down.
Now, why does MDOT keep it at 55? Because their old way of thinking about...
They're a
how
bureaucracy,
speed
that's
goes,
why.
right. But they have an old way of thinking about how to put a speed on a road, and it's the 85th percentile rule. So percentile, it sounds like we're back in school now taking one of those tests. But if you go out and you measure the speeds of 100 people on that roadway, and you line them up from the slowest to the fastest, and you go up near the fastest, and you take number 85, closest to the fastest, and you find out how fast that person's going, that's where they set the road speed at, okay? So if you go out to that area at 55 and do the 85th percentile study now, you might find an answer of like 62. So they're not going to lower the speed limit. But you might say to them, why aren't you going to lower the speed limit? We're inside the city limits. We don't want people going that fast with all these driveways and businesses. Their answer is because people drive that fast there, and if you make the speed limit slower, one person's going to drive slower, and the most dangerous thing is when the traffic's not all moving at the same speed. That's what causes accidents. Well, that's kind of this whole circular argument that you can never change it then. The reason people drive that You don't look down at your speedometer every 2 seconds when you're driving. You have a feel for what the roadway is designed for. If the road is wide and straight and it's got wide shoulders and it's smooth asphalt, you're going to drive fast because you feel safe and in control at that speed. When the road starts to turn or it gets bumpier or there's trees hanging over it or there's a lot of signage, that makes you slow down. Or if there's parking or a bike lane, that makes you slow down. So people drive at the speed that the road is engineered for. And if you keep that road built the way it is and just change the number on the sign, it's not going to slow people down unless you just write every single person. You may going to have to deputize a lot of policemen to write all those tickets and put a sign out there that says, "We ticket
I'm as guilty as anybody, but after the first ticket, I'll learn.
Well, I'm not going to come here to go shopping. I'm just going to turn around and drive to Norway or to Iron Mountain. I don't want to get a ticket. I'm not even going to come here. I'm going to make sure I turn off and go down towards Green Bay or something. You know, I don't want to go through Norway and get a ticket. Speed trap.
Let's
But
open
at the
it
same
up.
token, if traffic slows down, they'll have a better chance to look around a little bit and maybe turn off on Main Street.
Let's open it
Well,
up
there
to the
you go.
public.
But let's think about how you can engineer the road that makes people instinctively slow down too.
Okay.
Go along with that.
We're gonna open up to the public now,
For
and
sure.
just for questions and comments. So if anybody would come up to the podium, state your name and address for the record.
My name is Doug Straka. I live in Vulcan on Lake Louise Drive. I guess a question I had for you is just, we're talking about, we'd have a 5-foot buffer. And I don't think you have to necessarily put a bike lane in. So when you're talking about just having that buffer zone, one point that wasn't brought up, but in Norway we have, especially in the downtown core, we've got a lot of buildings where you're coming down a side street, you want to turn onto US 2, make a right turn. Well, you've got buildings to your left, and you can't see around there. So you're really making a blind turn. So you get 5 more feet, well, you're going to have 5 more feet to get out and see that. So, I don't know, I think that's a point that's not addressed.
Thank you.
My name is Lori Turi, and I'm from Vulcan. And I respect Mr. Sharp's presentation as to what he had given us, but I do have to point out a couple more things. If you go down to a 2-lane or a 3-lane diet, one thing you have to realize is when you are pulled over by a police officer, they automatically put their car partially into a traffic lane to protect themselves from the car that they're going to go ticket. So now you're pushing that traffic over even more into that middle turn lane, or you're going against more oncoming traffic. So that also has to be considered in all this. The other item is EMS. What are we going to do if there's an EMS, fire ambulance response, or if there's an accident on that roadway? Now you just limited your traffic even more, and you may have even limited EMS into coming to that scene. One of the things that the locals are going to do, they're going to look for alternative routes, which are going to push more traffic into residential areas, which we don't want. Because that's going to, again, increase that child playing in the street, have that ball run out. Because with the speed limit going, they're going to look for alternative routes. I agree with Mr. Bablani when he talked about the increase in the single-lane traffic. One thing they also have to realize is that there are only 2 blocks between our Main Street stoplight and US 8. You go down to 1 lane of traffic, and how many times when you are backed up, people block that left lane, and you're going to have a big stream of cars, whether they're trying to get into Norway Street on a left-hand turn, or they're trying to get into US 8. You're going to congest that matter even more, and again, you're going to be pushing all the traffic backward. Mark made the comment.
You're also going to have the semi-trucks in the turning lane. To make a right-hand turn to
Yes.
go across on Highway 8 if they're coming
Yes.
from the west.
One alternative to the gentleman right here, when he talked about the right-hand turn at the stoplight, is to make it a no right-hand turn at the stoplight. That would prevent a lot of cars from inching out from behind the buildings that are right at that intersection corner. Just by eliminating the ability to make that right-hand turn, I think that would alleviate the issue that he's talking about with the cars inching out also.
Or you could put a one-way like we have by the corner house, the old corner, by their place down there,
On
the
Iron Creek.
restaurant, by Talon's. There's a one-way, so
Yes.
you wouldn't be pulling out right there. That
I
would
mean,
solve
there's a
that
couple
problem
other
right there.
alternatives. I think, in my opinion, going with this road diet would be a poor decision. I think Mr. Sharp had made the comment, hey, I'm not going to go through Norway if there's a speed trap. I want to go to Green Bay. I want to turn off somewhere else. You're going to prevent people from coming into this direction, which is going to hurt eventually our economy. And if anything, it's going to hurt the business owners that are on the corridor. Thank you.
Thank you. Go ahead.
I actually believe that the traffic is going to flow a lot smoother than it does now. I hate being on US 2, having to make a left-hand turn. I'm always afraid that somebody's going to smack in the end of my car. It's very nerve-wracking and it's dangerous. And I don't think that you can argue about the safety. I think the statistics and the data shows that it is a much safer way to go. And I'm also thinking about how this could unite the downtown with US 2, because we don't see people walking out there because who wants to walk along the highway with trucks and all that traffic? I know parents who won't allow their children to ride their bikes to Dairy Queen or maybe go to the Stone Road because it isn't safe. And it isn't safe walking along on US 2 right by Main Street either, with those cars whizzing by right up against the sidewalk. And it also divides our Main Street. People will get in their car and drive to one side of Main Street so that they won't have to cross. So I think that just the opposite is going to be true. I think that it's going to increase business. It's going to make it much more walkable. I think you'll see people walking and doing much more shopping down here than they do now. And I think that this is the best thing that we could do for our community and for our city, because I have just seen the downtown withering away. I want to see a vibrant community. That's what I think we all want. And slowing down the traffic, because MDOT is not going to slow down the traffic for us. They are not going to lower the speed limits. And even to have a 4-lane going through here, MDOT's criteria is 20 to 25,000 ADTs. We've got less than half that. So we don't even warrant the amount of traffic that they would require for a 4-lane.
Thank you.
Hi, I'm Lynn Schultz. I own Talon Supper Club here, and I am totally against this. I sat in my restaurant on Monday for 7 minutes at 11 o'clock and seen 4 semis side by side going by my building. If you put a semi with a pup, it's to the end of Mike's Furniture. If you put another semi behind that, plus another logging truck, they're all the way to Toby's. People are not going to be able to get in and out of my business because I have the parking lot. I mean, they can pull up and pull on the side, but if they park in my parking lot, they're not going to be able to get out into the highway. I think if you do this, you're going to ruin a lot of the small businesses in this community. Putting this buffer zone on there was something on there that you could put greenery. What are the snowplows going to do? So you're going to have to buy, in the wintertime, and then you say that it's too close to the road. There's only 2 lanes, there's only 2 blocks that there isn't between the sidewalk and the highway. Because once you get to Toby's, that's where it stops. The rest of the way, all the way up to by my house where the railroad tracks are, there's this much grass and then there's a sidewalk. My other question is, how many accidents have we had where people have been hit walking down the sidewalk in Norway by a car or a truck or a semi? I'm totally against this. I think you're going to hurt a lot of the businesses. I think the accidents are going to increase terrifically. And getting in and out of Highway 8 here, when you have the Norway Fair and the races, is going to be ridiculous. We sat there today for 7 minutes trying to get out of Highway 8 to go to Iron Mountain. And that was at 5 o'clock.
What you're going to have is people taking more chances to get out of there.
That, or they're going to, like Lori said, they're going to start taking side streets. And is that really what you want? I just know the logging trucks and the semis that go back from the 8 months it took us to rebuild that building. I mean, yeah, they fly through town. And if you have 4 of them backed up, you're never going to get anywhere. You're going to have to sit through 3 lights to get through Main Street. And is that going to encourage people from Iron Mountain or anywhere else to want to come here when they're backed up in traffic? I don't think so. So, thank you.
Thank you. Just one, with our configuration, I'll give you 1 second here. Just with our configuration, we wouldn't be moving the curb, there wouldn't be adding green space or bump outs or that on the highway. The curb would stay right where it is now on the highway. Go ahead.
My name is Gary Zeman, 618 Iron Street. First of all, Mark, when you leave my house, going north, you know where I live, 618, right?
Yeah.
Across from Brian's. I can't go right, I can't go left, as far as you're concerned, because I can't see. I mean, you know, you got to pull out. If you want to go right or left, you got to pull out. And I'm sneaking out. That's the first thing. The issue, though, I think, is the speed limit. And if I said to every member of the city council, if I said, does the city need more money? I bet you everybody would say yes. You'd like to have some more money to do some things with, pay the bills and so forth. If I asked these folks out here, I said, do you like lower taxes? They'd say, sure, we'd like lower taxes. So the bottom line is, all you got to do, and I've told the old mayor,
Wow.
yeah, George, if the city wants more money, all you got to do is enforce the traffic laws 1 week a month. That's all. I've never seen, after 7 years now, I've never seen a city cop give a ticket on US 2. I see the state troopers all the time because they pull them over and they pull right behind Brian's and they pull over there. Accidents, speeding, drunk drivers, I see them do the tests all the time. But I never see the city cop do that. Now, I've understood and I've heard that the city can't stop cars on US 2 because it's the state road. According to the state trooper I've talked to, he said, yes, it's the way you write the tickets.
They're always stopping, Norway PD is always stopping cars turning,
I'm talking
going
about
down.
I'm talking about the area right in front of my house because I see the sirens and I hear them going back and forth. So I may be wrong on that, but I'm just saying that there are so many violations of the speed limits. People turning, no U-turn parking, violations all the time. And people need to know, just like Lee. You know, I violate the law, but when I come down by Paul is there, Thirsty Whale, and I come into you go to 40 miles an hour, and I'm getting blown past every day. I mean, you can't deny that. If I had $1 for every time a car was, or a semi, and again, the logging trucks, as the lady pointed out, blasting down the highway, it's amazing. And those are huge trucks, and I'm just surprised after this amount of time that I've never seen a major collision right at Main Street because I hear them hit the brakes, I hear them honk the horns, and when it gets a little icy, you know how it gets. So
Gary, I'm a firm believer that that street turning off by Bryan, so you don't have to creep out, that should have been a one-way, that first block years ago.
yeah, but again, my
And that would
point
solve
here is
that problem
right,
that
and
both
most
of
of the
yous were
time we go
talking
the other
about.
way. Most of the time I go the other way. But bottom line is, I think it's the speed limit. I think you said that. I think you said the speed limit's the issue. And you know, everybody's in a hurry. But again, if the law was enforced, I think it would make a difference. People would say, hey, I might get a ticket. I'll slow down a little bit. And that would help businesses too. Maybe they'd stop at the Talons because they, hey, I'm not going to get pushed behind a semi coming down. I'm not going to pull over there. I'll go down. I'll go someplace else. So,
I do have to say, our police do quite a bit of enforcement and ticketing on the highway. You may not see it where you are,
yeah.
but they are out on the highway quite a bit.
So
And we don't, the city doesn't get the money for the tickets.
well, my understanding is that the way these tickets are written, that could be changed, and the city could recoup more of the money that they've been
Is
given.
that true?
That's
We'd
what
have
I've
to have
heard.
our own traffic court to do that.
So we wouldn't make any money either.
We get a couple bucks from each ticket. We'd have to have like a traffic court type setup, which I believe in Michigan you can do. Not many do it,
But again, I think the issue is the speed.
And, you know, we agree. We've tried to get them to lower the speed, but like Mr. Sharp talked about, it's the 85th percentile.
But I'm not only talking about US 2. I'm talking about on any of the streets in town. I mean, it doesn't take much to, you know,
Okay.
see people speeding, you know, and I guess that's human nature too. So you're fighting that battle all the time too. But I think there's some way you could, you know, even a public relations campaign to do something, so.
Okay, thank you. Does anyone else wish to address it? Please come on.
name is Paula Pierpont. I have the Thirsty Whale on the end of town. I think I'm all in favor of getting the traffic to slow down. We even have T-shirts made that say we're worth the left-hand turn. It's, I don't know how many times I've been in my car turning into VAR, and I jump on the gas. I think somebody's going to nail me from behind. They just, they'll come right up behind you. Maybe they are going to swing out, maybe they don't see you. I don't know. Whatever. But I think that, I think it would be great if we, everybody has opinions, and then opinions are, opinions. I think that there has to be towns that are like ours, that have studies that are done that show if it would benefit us, if it would, if it would hinder us, or if they're, and I just think we should look at some studies of places that have it, and I think if there's any way we can get the traffic to slow down, I am all for that.
Thank you.
Lou Steigerwald, I live in Vulcan, but work for Norway Vulcan Schools. What we're talking about here does dovetail very nicely with what we've done for safe routes to school. But to add on to what she just said, when I was working as curriculum director in Oscoda, one of the things that we did as a town not much different in size than we are, we had a problem where the businesses drove the initiative. It's interesting in different perspectives. The businesses, most of our businesses were perpendicular to where US 23 passes through Oscoda. The businesses there led the initiative to narrow that down and eliminate and do exactly what we're talking about here in order to get people to look when they're in town and slow down through that area to see what the businesses are running perpendicular to US 23. We have a similar situation here with our highway running through town here. And so if you wanted to look at a town where they have done that, you could get in contact with the folks in Oscoda, because in fact they have. And they're not in a dissimilar situation to where we are. But this does dovetail nicely with what we're doing with safe routes as well.
One thing with the school, with their end, on that end of town, that was actually one of my biggest concerns, was
Sure.
when you're at 315, when you got all the high school kids and the buses and the parents all hitting the highway at once. Have you looked at that at all, thought about that at all?
If you did have that island in the center where people could stop and pause, where the kids or the adults walking with the kids could stop and pause, I think you'd be okay. Because you'd have that break where they'd be in a safe area. You're not going to have cars in that area, so I think you'd be safe there. I think that, one of the things you might want to look at is to go to a town where they've done this sort of thing and see what the results have been. I agree with the comment before me. Thanks.
Is anybody else?
My name's Barb Thorne. I own the Swedish Passport 626 Iron. I just wanted to say a couple of things about safety. I had an incident when my daughter was little, so it's been about 15, maybe 18 years. But I was pushing her in the stroller by where Mike's Furniture is now. So you have just a sidewalk, there's nothing, just you and the sidewalk. And a logging truck came by. I could hear it coming behind me, and then I heard a whoosh right next to my ear. And one log had shifted off the logging truck, and just narrowly missed me. So I feel lucky to be alive. And also if I'm, weeds grow by, I have, the sidewalks right on the highway, and I have to watch the stoplight if I'm going to weed it, and hurry up and pull some weeds and then get over, because cars do not move. If you're on that sidewalk, they're going to wash right by your head and not move over or give you any space at all. And Mark, you're talking about people not using the sidewalk out by, the West End. It's because you're taking your life into your hands. There's no room. Logging trucks are going by at 55 miles an hour. It's not walkable.
You're not gaining any green space, though, or any extra room. The best of my knowledge, they're not moving any curbs, and you're going to have 30% more traffic in that one single lane. So you might have had every fifth log truck in the inside lane closest to the center of the road. Now you have every log truck running next to the curb.
No, it's
Well, it
not
would
next
be-
to the curb. You have
They would
5
have-
feet of space.
There would be a 5-foot buffer, basically. They'd be moved over 5 feet from where they are now. So it would be 5 foot further away from the sidewalk. There would be a little bit of a buffer built in.
You would still have, but I mean, you don't have any curb there. People are more apt to stay off of the bike path area if there's a curb. We have the same thing going down, what is it, behind the fire hall? Where you go there? We have the bike path there, and there's a line there, but probably 60% of the cars, because Kurt Stromquist's wife calls me all the time, people are on that bike path with their vehicles. And I don't think you're gonna have the curb, you're not gonna have the curbing there, so you're not gonna have something to actually stop the cars from jumping on that bike path.
Well, I don't think it's necessarily going to be a bike path, but it could be a walkable. It could
Well,
make the West End businesses, you could walk there.
What
But
it's
right
gonna
now, you
be though,
cannot.
what it's gonna be though, is it's just gonna be a line on the road.
Right. But
And you're not
you're
gonna-
giving yourself some room, so cars aren't
You-
whizzing right next to your head. There is some people, they must not have a car, that are pushing a stroller, right there, and cars are whizzing by at 55 miles an hour.
What I'm getting at, Barb, is we have the line on that bike path that was just put in, and if you ride over there and look at the traffic goes right across that bike path all the time. There's no curbing there to stop them from going across there.
The hope on this would be all the traffic the traffic as a whole would move over so that they wouldn't be in there. That's the hope of it.
That's the hope of it, yeah.
And I will not let my children even walk to the library.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Does anybody else wish to address the council?
Hello, Mary Durkins, Ed's Market, other side of town. Is it true that even if we were to go from the 4 lanes down to the 3 lanes, there's no guarantee that the speed limit is going to be reduced? I mean, that's a hope, obviously, that the traffic would slow down, but that doesn't mean that MDOT, in fact, is going to reduce that speed limit. Is that true?
Correct. There's no guarantee that the speed limit would be reduced.
Okay, so we still would have pretty fast traffic now going from the 4 lanes to 2 lanes. And again, I believe that having 1 lane going each way, you're obviously going to have more cars per lane, a single lane than double lane, therefore making it more difficult still to be pulling out from side streets. As it is, it's difficult coming out from Stone Road onto US 2. It is difficult coming from mine, doing a west turn. It just doesn't seem to me that even though you are hoping, that the traffic's going to slow down, which all of us seem to feel is going to be a benefit, doesn't mean that that's going to happen. So I don't feel that this is going to be very beneficial either, and I do believe it's going to create more congestion and really not help anyone, and that's my feeling.
With the speed limit, what they've found with this type of conversion, traffic does tend to slow down because you have right-hand turns blocking traffic. Just naturally that way, one slow driver will block everyone. Traffic itself tends to, MDOT would then do a study, but if the 85th percentile came out at 55, it would still be 55.
Right, and
You're
they've
gonna,
had
you're
a
gonna
number of
have an
studies.
easier time getting into the business, but a lot harder time getting out.
Correct, yes.
That's where, with the speed limit, that would be the process if we did it, would be get it in place, request another speed study and see what happens. But there's no guarantee the traffic would slow down enough.
Right. So this probably isn't going to solve any problems or create any benefit as far as people being attracted to Norway, because as it is, nothing is really going to change other than traffic being longer lines going each way.
Right.
Okay, well, that's all. I just wanted to point that out too, and
Okay.
I don't really think it's a good idea either, so thank you.
Thank you. Does anyone else wish to address?
Wolski, Upper Pine Creek Road, Norway. I feel like the presentation was good, but somewhat sugar-coated toward the 3-lane. Some observations I've made over years of trucking through Norway, oversized loads, over wide loads, that you need all the room you have. And when you come around the corner by Loft Homes and you're heading west, I only got 350 horsepower and I got a load on, and I barely hit 55 by the time I'm past the Thirsty Whale right in front of their door. And by the time I get to the spring, I'm about 30. And even if I had 400 horsepower, I don't know if I'd be going more than 2 miles an hour faster. As you can see by the trucks that leave Norway. Norway's a hole, and it's a hard thing to climb out of either way. I watched the Norway police stop a car right on US 2 in front of Era Chevrolet Saturday night, block that lane solid. Saturday afternoon, about noon, I was sitting in Dairy Queen, looking out the west or the east window, watching a guy with a camper pull into the BP station. It's about a 32-foot camper. Axles are just behind the center. He's taking the first entry on the west end of BP, where the curb is, it's a narrow entry, but he had to get in there, which a lot of logging trucks and semis go in there to fuel. And this guy had to crawl over the curb with his trailer tires. Must have taken him all of 10, 12 seconds to get that thing. His whole ass end of the trailer was blocking one lane of traffic. So just some of the things that happen in traffic that aren't really displayed. Also, 28 seconds or whatever it was is not true. And I guess time isn't the real issue, but when you have people in a one-lane thing making right-hand turns, you're going to be stopping. You're going to be waiting for them to get their vehicle out of in front of you. They're going to back up other vehicles, and maybe you're the fifth guy and don't see the other four slowing down. There's a potential for a lot of rear-end collisions. Them are just some of the things I thought of. Not, speed limit would be great, all kinds of things, but just some of my observations.
I think taking in the standard L2, when you have the train crossing on the east side of town, you got time. You're going to have time to eat your lunch.
Yeah.
When you're going through town.
Yeah.
And if you're crossing the street, you're going to have time to eat 2 lunches to get across the street.
And I've talked to some other truck drivers about it too, just and got their opinions. They had a lot of concern, like you did, for crawling out, going up that way. If you get somebody turns into Family Dollar and you got to just about stop your truck, you've now got to go from.
Oh, you're 5 miles an hour.
Yeah.
With a loaded truck with them 11 axle trucks. I think I don't know. My thought would be a 5-lane highway would allow for right turns, left turns, and through traffic to flow. If it's a monetary issue, probably when you get to tearing out curbs and doing infrastructure probably underneath the roadway, but that's how I see a flowing highway. And then if you did ever get to 20,000 vehicles a day, it would handle it. Look at Iron Mountain, they're doing it. So.
Thank you.
Yep, that's it. Thank you.
Hello, my name is Gail Galata. I live in Vulcan, and I just have a couple of things to say. First of all, it seems to me that there are really 2 issues that people are addressing here in their comments. One is about safety, and the other is about convenience. And I think that it's worth a little bit of inconvenience at times, perhaps seconds, to make it safer. The research that Mr. Sharp presented is research. Those are facts. It's based on research that has proven that these things have worked or not worked. And whether this is something that the community wants is why we're all here discussing it. But I think we have to respect the research, And we also have to think about whether it's worth perhaps a few seconds of inconvenience turning in somewhere to make it safer for all of our citizens. And also, no one, I don't think, has addressed the aesthetics of just making the town look nicer by not having 4 lanes of traffic whizzing through. I'm not a business person here, but I think that the businesses along the highway would benefit from not having all the snow and the salt thrown up against them, as well as, not having everything whiz there. And I understand what you're saying about you don't have a green zone there on the sides, but it would create 5 feet on each side, if my understanding is correct from the research, and those 5 feet can make the difference, can make the difference visually, aesthetically, and also for safety. So that's why I think that this is a good idea. Thank you.
Thank you. Does anyone else wish to address the council? Council have any other comments they want to make? I'd like to thank Mr. Sharp for coming in and presenting this to us tonight. I'd like to thank all the residents for giving us your opinion. I think we're glad to hear it. We're glad to hear all the opinions in town. And from that, we're going to be taking a 5 to 10 minute recess here before we begin the regular meeting. You're welcome to stay for the regular meeting if you wish.
John, is this a full council decision or is it a case to decide it?
This is council.
Yes, I think you should stress that.
One thing that Okay, welcome back, ladies and gentlemen. We are now going to be going into the rest of our meeting, of our regular meeting. First thing would be the approval of the minutes of the regular meeting of June 3rd. Any additions or corrections? If not, I'm looking for a motion.
I make a motion, we approve the January 3rd regular meeting minutes.
Support.
Motion made by Mark, supported by Dr. Hayes. Roll call.
Mr. Menegini. Dr. Hayes.
Yes.
Mr. Gottstein.
Yes.
Mr. Babalani.
Yes.
Mr. Oja.
Yes. Approval manifest 2013-12 in the amount of $423,980.65. Mark.
Yeah, I got a couple, but
Okay.
come back to me.
Okay, Chris.
I had a couple. Page 1, under Police Department, the AT&T charge. I thought we had switched that line over to the VoIP system, or did we still not complete that?
I'm gonna have to check on that. We did switch that line over.
That's their fax machine.
Oh, that's the
fax
fax
machine? Okay,
yeah.
okay.
We have a couple of those in the building, the fax on 2 sides plus the elevator.
Okay. Next one is on page 3, under the major and local streets. Just wondering why we paid Canadian National for a signal light? Or did we buy a signal light, or we just
No, that's
paid?
an annual charge that we have per the statute. It's actually a Michigan statute, but it's also.
So we didn't actually buy anything?
No,
for it, that's
we have a maintenance charge we have two signals that we have to
Okay.
pick up.
On page 4, underneath the fire department, best heating and air conditioning, the routine maintenance for over $800.
We have a maintenance agreement with them for seasonal maintenance.
It just 800 seems kind of high for routine maintenance. Is that typically what it costs? Or-
Yeah, it's per the agreement. I
Okay.
mean, I went
So
through
that's
the
the
bills.
contractor rate that we have?
Yeah.
Okay. I see one more on here. And that's all I had.
Mark.
I had 2 of the same questions that Chris had. On page 7, on the top, Ray or Joe, electric side, Pellegrini new meter service, $465. Is that something that's reimbursed?
No, Mark, that is not. That is for the actual meter that we had to purchase to put in there. He doesn't have to pay for the actual meter.
Okay, okay. And then right underneath that $47 for multicolor, I'm hoping that goes away pretty soon. I don't know if that's permanent. Metering charge. I have, that's it.
All right. Dr. Hayes.
No additional questions.
Lee.
A couple were asked and answered already, but I got a couple more here. Page 2, under General Fund, Department of Public Works, Michigan Technological University Mine Safety Training, 3 employees. What?
Yes, I can
Gravel
address
pits.
that unless you want to.
It's a requirement for anytime we have to go into a gravel pit or a quarry or anything we're picking up, if we take our truck in to get rock, they're supposed to be certified.
Yeah.
It's a type of certification.
Okay, and then, I had one other thing here, where'd it go? Under the fire department, volunteer coat and pant, $2,400? I hope that's for more than one.
Is that for turnout gear?
Volunteer coat pant, Fire Rescue Supply, LLC, capital improvement, new equipment.
Yeah, that would be the regular gear.
That's just the regular gear. It's expensive.
For one set?
I'd have to get back to you on it, but I think I've looked in this before and it's pricey, especially if it's turnout gear.
Okay, one other little thing here, under police department, gas purchases, Wex Bank. Would they have to take the police car someplace? Or what's the Wex, WEX Bank, police department?
That's the
60.
famous marathon.
Oh.
Just changed the name of who we pay it to.
Oh, okay, that's all I have then.
Jeremy, you got one more. On page 6, at the very bottom under electric, Red Line Sport Marine, a refund for $38.96.
Yes, that is the commercial line extension reimbursement policy, 2 years of consumption.
I don't have any additional questions. The only thing I would like to add is our purchase power for May was only $14,465, so hopefully we can keep getting good water. With that, I'm looking for a motion.
Make a motion, we approve manifest 2013-12 in the amount of $423,980.65.
Support.
Motion made by Chris, supported by Mark. Roll call.
Dr. Hayes?
Yes.
Mr. Gottstein?
Yes.
Mr. Babalani?
Yes.
Mr. Oja?
Yes.
Mr. Menigini?
Yes.
Does anyone from the audience wish to address the council on the minutes, manifest, or any agenda item? If so, please come up to the podium. You have 5 minutes. State your name and address for the record. If not, there'll be a further time for comment at the end of the meeting on any subject. Okay, first thing on the agenda this evening is Resolution 2013-17, the General Appropriations Act. Mr. Anderson.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. At the last meeting, we held a public hearing on our budget. As I mentioned in the public hearing, we had 5 budget hearings where we went through each specific fund. At our last meeting, we also passed the rate resolution and the pay resolution. For this meeting, we have 2 resolutions. One is for what we call the General Appropriations Act. It's a requirement under the Michigan statute that we pass a singular resolution which outlines the general fund and also the major and local street fund.
Ray, is that resolution the one that we approve for the electric transfer, or is it the one below it? That's tied in with electric transfer?
No, this General Appropriations Act is just for the general fund and the major and local street fund.
Okay.
But it would have transfer numbers in it to the general fund and the street fund, so
Yeah,
it would affect
does.
it, yes.
Would affect it. Okay, that's in there?
Yes, that would be in there. Yep.
Okay.
Okay, is there any other questions or comments? Otherwise, I'm looking for a motion.
I make a motion, we approve Resolution 2013-17, the General Appropriations Act. Resolution.
Second.
Motion made by Mark, supported by Chris. Roll call.
Mr. Gottstein?
Yes.
Mr. Babalani?
Yes.
Mr. Oja?
Yes.
Mr. Menigini?
Yes.
Dr. Hayes?
Yes.
Okay, next on the agenda, Resolution 2013-18, the operating and capital improvements budget. This resolution is to approve that we have completed the budget. Is there any questions, comments? Are we going to accept the budget as a whole with this resolution?
I'll make a motion, we adopt Resolution 2013-18 operating and capital improvements budget.
Support.
Motion made by Lee, supported by Dr. Hayes. Roll call.
Mr. Babalani?
Yes.
Mr. Oja?
Yes.
Mr. Menigini?
Yes.
Dr. Hayes?
Yes.
Mr. Gottstein?
Yes.
Resolution 2013-19, safe routes to schools. Mr. Anderson.
All right, thank you, Mr. Mayor. This resolution before you is it's a revised resolution from the resolution that you passed in February for the original application to MDOT for safe routes. Under that original resolution, you had a cap amount of $35,000. In the application phase or in the response from MDOT, they are basically ready to approve our application, but they're not going to approve it without a clean, what they call a clean resolution, which basically removes that cap. Now, we do have a contract that we have to sign, and I guess that's their theory, is that you're going to sign the contract, and by signing that contract, you're taking that responsibility irregardless of what the resolution says. Kevin Trevelyan is here from Coleman Engineering, and him and I went through this over the last couple of weeks, back and forth. And I think the bottom line at the end of the day is that it's the engineer's responsibility to make sure we don't go over that, right? Why don't you come on up? It's part of the project plan.
Yeah, first of all, I apologize that we have to come back to you again for the Safe Routes to School program. Nothing has changed. The state is still picking up the 20% local match through other means or methods to match that federal money. So just like the last time I was here, the only obligation for the city of Norway is to cover the construction, the design and construction engineering. Ray mentioned they are ready to approve this application. The city of Norway looks like they're going to be successful. They just asked that we change the resolution language. When I presented it to you last time, I didn't think they would have issue with that because the contract that comes later does state right in there, just like any other MDOT job, that if there is a project overrun, that the city's responsible for that expense. So full faith and confidence in our estimate that we've provided, that we can construct the project for the applied amount, and yeah, I guess in so many words, you guys would be relying on Coleman to make sure that that doesn't happen.
Do we have a penalty clause for you?
What's that?
A penalty clause for you if you go over?
Sure he is. You can fire us.
Or we just not pay it either. There was
That would
a
be
bigger
another-
bill than
another
expected.
Is there any questions or comments?
We're still on budget, obviously, to be underneath that 35,000 that we had put a cap
Yes.
on.
Yep, no funds have been expended to date at all.
On that project was, it looked at, I know I brought it up the last meeting, about moving one of those safe routes closer to the highway to come from Section to Main. We had talked about that. I know that this really doesn't have a lot to do with what we're approving here. I just wanted, being we had you here.
We did talk about changing some ramp locations, and through their technical reviews, they did ask us to change a couple of things. Section Street is still on there. I believe that we needed to explain that to them a little bit about our proposed improvements along Walnut. I don't think that there's anything down on Main.
Well, what I was getting at was, a couple of our council people had suggested that we move one of the safe routes. I know there's one in the 200 block, or is it the?
It was the 300.
300 block. about moving one down further, down this way further.
Okay, yeah, I
So
don't,
the
I don't,
people that are on this side of town could get from Section to Main Street and then cross under
I
the
know
light.
since the last time I was here, nothing has changed substantially with the actual routes.
Okay.
I know that.
Okay. Any other questions or comments?
It sounds like a bookkeeping type of issue then. We've
Yes.
approved it before, and
Yep.
so we just need to approve Resolution 2013-19. So I'll make that make that motion that we pass Resolution 2013-19.
Support.
Motion made by Dr. Hayes, supported by Lee. Roll call.
Mr. Oja?
Yes.
Mr. Menigini?
Yes.
Dr. Hayes?
Yes.
Mr. Gottstein?
Yes.
Mr. Babalani?
Yes.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you.
And that is the conclusion of our business this evening, ladies and gentlemen. Would anyone wish to address the council on any topic? If you do, please come up to the podium, state your name and address for the record.
Steve Sfera, W5631 Fairview Drive, Norway, Michigan. I'm going to read a letter that I've given copies to all of you already, and with the documents backing it up, but I want it in the record. I am writing to inform you of my reason for addressing the council on June 17th. This is to address a long-standing issue that dates back to 2006. I feel that I have been singled out by the utility director and denied equal treatment on electrical extensions to our property on the north side of Strawberry Lake. I would like to extend electric service to said property. I intend to construct a home on the property. It will improve the area and provide tax and other revenue for the city. At the time of the purchase, when I inquired about obtaining electrical service, I was told by the electrical director that he would drop a quote, but that it would be very expensive. Enclosed, you will find 3 different quotes, including the one from 2006. You can see from the quotes that they vary widely in price and route. That in itself should raise a red flag, which I assure you it did. Enclosed, you will find the copies of 3 quotes, including the one from 2006 and the 2 most recent ones. The second one does not include a dollar amount. You can see from the quotes that they vary widely in prices and routes. And for the last one, I had to meet on site and show the utility director where I wanted to extend and where I wanted them to come from on the lines that were over there. Since receiving this last quote, which seemed outrageous to go 480 feet, I have investigated recent extensions by the electrical service by the City of Norway and found great discrepancies. I checked on 3 recent extensions, one on the WPA Road, one on Benton Lake Road, and Habitat for Humanity. Following are the amounts for the 3. WPA Road was $8,518 to extend over 3/10 of a mile, which includes 6 poles installed. Benton Lake Road, $4,300, and Habitat, $713.41. It is plainly evident by this that there is something wrong, and you can see how this became an issue. The WPA extension of at least 3/10 of a mile for $8,518, and our quote dated 5/23/2013 for $8,642 to extend 480 feet. Then there is the Habitat quote for $715.41. I attempted to approach the city manager regarding these issues, which I was directed to do by the utility director. I called on Friday, I don't remember the date, last Friday passed, and on Monday, June 10th, I was told by the clerk that the manager informed her to tell me that he would not talk to me. I find this to be very unprofessional and insulting. This is legitimate city business. I was informed by the clerk that the manager told her to inform me to take it to the council, so here I am. I am seeking resolution of these issues from the council so that taking these to the Michigan Public Service Commission in the form of a formal complaint is not necessary. The city's operating an electrical utility and is regulated by the commission. I look forward to a swift and just resolution of these issues. Thank you. I also was told, that the mayor was in there when I called in the manager's office, and that he told the manager he didn't have to talk to me. Now, these are legit, he didn't know what I was coming to see him about. I didn't say what it was. So that, a lot of this could have been probably discussed and maybe got somewhere with this issue. Then I was told, when I asked for the copies of the contracts for the 3 that I knew the amounts on, I was told to file freedom of information, which is, you can do that. But I felt I was being stonewalled like that. It's public record.
We can't.
How
we
could
can't
I,
just give out-
excuse me, I have the
we don't-
floor?
We can't just give out contracts
Excuse
like
me?
that. That's why you have to use the Freedom of
Well,
Information.
wait,
Act.
anything that is public record, Jeremy, that the city has is available to the public.
Through
You're supposed to be
Freedom of Information
transparent.
Act.
No, you don't,
Yes.
you don't have to go through the freedom of information. If I ask the manager and he says, okay, I'll give it to you. No, you do not have to go through it. You can ask me to. You got to remember one thing. The Freedom of Information Act is not to protect you. It's to make transparent, open government for the people. And what I'm finding here is that instead of serving, that I have people that are ruling.
There was no ruling. You knew. we knew
Hold it, I
exactly-
thought I had the floor. I wasn't quite through.
No, wait a minute here.
Oh.
No, we knew what you were calling about because you had already talked to the utility superintendent. So nobody knew what you were calling about on Friday is wrong. Everybody knew what you were calling about. It was the problem you had with this. We also got that from talking to the staff in the office. There was nothing the manager can do for you. The manager cannot choose to lower the quote.
That's not true, though.
Yes, it is.
That's not true. That
Only the
he's nothing
council
he
can.
could do.
Only
We
the
could have-
council can choose to lower the quote. So the manager cannot choose to lower the quote. You were directed to take your complaint to council, which was the
I
correct thing.
thought this was my 5 minutes. You can talk after. Okay?
You're-
Okay. Had I had these quotes, I would have been able to compare the rates that were being charged. I did finally get them today. I went over them. There are issues in there, serious issues on these quotes. Okay? And I did not mention when I called the manager what I wanted to see him about. It was never mentioned. I said I'd like to come in and see him.
I believe that the quote on WPPA Road was to upgrade some of the system. So when you're saying 1/3 of a mile was covered, Joe, correct me if I'm wrong,
I will, just finish what you got to say.
but that.
There's a
third
brand new
of-
house that they ran it
That 1/3 of a
into,
mile
Mark.
was to upgrade some of our system to handle low power
Okay.
voltage in that
No,
area
you're on the
to
wrong
existing
place.
homes.
You're on the wrong place, Mark.
It's the wrong.
I'm not
place.
talking about there. There's a new home going in there that they ran. They ran 6 poles into a new home, one home.
There's a home built in the back for 40 back there.
Okay? I understand what you're saying. I agree with you. I agree with that was another issue. This is not. This is not that issue. And I had a quote in 2006 for 3 poles to run from by your apartment building down 12, okay? And it came out to $15,600. And that was 3 poles. Now we're running 6 poles for $8,000 in 2013. So I see a problem, and I would love to sit down with you guys and we'll go over these, because I think if you saw what was in these quotes and bids, you might be a little worried about what's going on too. I just want to be treated fairly, and I don't think we are. As far as the habitat quote, I found after I got the freedom of information that, and I don't want to get into all the specifics because you guys don't want to spend that much time tonight, and neither do I. And I don't think it's going to solve anything here, but they originally ran 300 feet of underground for $3,000, and ours is $8,600. There's a difference in years, but there's also a difference in years from 2006 for our $15,600 and 2013 to run over 3/10, and it's over 3/10 of a mile. for $8,600 or $500. So, and I do know that Michigan, I really want some answers, or I will file a formal complaint with Michigan. I don't want to do that. I want to get this ironed out. I want to build a house. I want to improve the area. I want to give you tax money. And there was going to be another house going in there. Okay? Paul approached me last fall and when I was at Lofham's and said, oh, gee, we really like you to do something with that land over there, you know, and improve it. So I'm trying, and I'm getting stonewalled. I'm getting, from day one on this, from 2006, that was not a fair quote.
I don't understand why our utility director would do that to you.
Well,
I
there's
don't-
three
I don't-
reasons, Mark. I
When
thought
I
about
looked
that.
at the information, I don't believe that he is.
Well, I got three reasons for that. One, it's ignorance. He doesn't know how to write a quote. Number two, it's abuse of authority. Or three, it's punitive. Which would be a form of abuse of authority.
Your original quote was what it was because it was estimated at four crew members with 48 hours of labor and 2 trucks at 48 hours.
Yeah, but that's the whole problem, see? Every one of those is different on the labor. When it was almost the identical project. Okay,
You're going a different
okay,
direction.
they did, and I mean, it's there in black and white. It's not so much the parts that are going into this system.
But it is the
It's
parts,
what's
too.
following after that.
Your original one also was overhead. This is all
Going out
overhead.
on the WPA road is overhead, and it's 6 poles. Am I right? You don't know,
Yes.
or you're going to
No.
take the 5th.
Oh,
I
I
don't
know.
know. Maybe you're going to take the 5th.
No, I
don't
will
know.
not
Oh,
take the fifth,
Okay.
Steve. All the accusations you're throwing at me about being punitive to you is wrong. I have nothing against you.
Okay, that's fine.
Every
Then
single
it must
one
be
of those
one.
quotes,
Mark asked, it must be some
Yeah.
other reason.
I don't foresee that there's
every
a
single
problem.
one of
with
those
it.
quotes is that way it is for a reason, and it is a quote,
Well-
Mark.
When I looked at the quotes myself, I don't see a problem with it. Mark, you know these better than I do.
Yeah,
to
I
read them.
had to pay for a
How
power line
can,
extension. I know how
okay,
expensive they
the
are.
Habitat for Humanity went 300 feet underground, and we're going 480 feet underground, and the labor is like so far different in truck time that it's pathetic.
Yeah, but there's like Joe pointed out once before when I've talked to him, it doesn't always go by the length of the line. It's the size of the line, it's the updates
But
that
they are
have
the
to go
same,
for
Mark.
your project. I looked at that, paperwork that you had there, Steve, and I can't foresee where there's a problem.
They put 4 houses in on Habitat, so, and we're putting 1, and so it's not the size of the line.
Well, you just
And
said you
why-
were putting 2.
and why was
You
it-
said
why
you were
was it-
putting 2
why was
2
it-
minutes ago, now you're only putting 1 house
No,
out there?
no,
Over
we're
there?
gonna put 2, but right now, he doesn't wanna be involved in it.
And as far as the mayor, the manager, he listens to your side of the story, and he
No,
can
he
only
didn't. He
tell
didn't
you.
see me.
He can only tell you, and Joe, they can only tell you their thoughts so many times. If you don't agree with them,
No,
then-
no, it's
then
not
you
their
need to
thoughts
come
I
to the
don't agree
council.
with, Mark. You have to have apples for apples. But I'm not gonna, I don't wanna get into a big, long argument here because, the facts are there, and I really would like to see something besides that from the city on somebody looking at it.
Can I make a suggestion, Mr. Sparrow?
Sure.
Why don't we get the utility director, Ray, and 2 council members where we can sit down and hash this out, see if there's any problems, and settle it that way?
Sure.
Everybody agree? And if it's okay, Ray, can that be done? Well, if it's only 2 council members, it's not a meeting, so.
Well, based on the grievances that I've heard from Mr. Sparrow over the last couple of weeks, granted through my conversations with Joe, he has changed his grievance from material to labor. He didn't agree with labor. Most of what I concluded as policy-type issues, the multiple quotes that Mr. Sparrow is claiming that we're changing are due to multiple conditions. And I went through that with Joe, and he has tried to look at different options, both helping or taking the utility into consideration, and Mr. Spera. So I'm not sure if we'll come to some conclusion. I'm willing to sit, but, based on his accusation that we just refused to, he called last week. I was out last week. I was in Friday, pretty slammed on Friday, and the most expeditious way to deal with this was go to the council because it was a policy issue. I have dealt with that kind of thing before. Then it just really becomes down to however length of time we meet, and we just disagree. And so I usually will say, you need to go to council because we are not at the liberty of changing those policies.
I'm not asking for a policy change. I just want to be treated like everybody else.
You have been.
You have been.
You have been
wait,
treated
wait,
like
wait. That's
everybody
your
else.
opinion now. Okay, without you, did you review these, right?
This
Did
was
you
a, this,
look at
this
them?
is a legitimate quote.
Excuse me, did you look at them?
I looked at them, and I looked at them with Joe, and we
Did you
talked
look
about
at the ones that you
They
gave me
are
under freedom of
consistent
information
with the
today?
other, Steve,
Did you?
Steve, they are consistent with the estimates that we have provided for the other projects. I looked through the other projects under the FOIA. They are consistent with the other projects that we estimate. We have gone through it, and Mark has gone through it on multiple occasions with us and has questioned the bills or the estimates on multiple occasions. We have been through this many times. So I feel comfortable that those estimates are our best estimate on quoting you power to that site. So yes, we have a difference of agreement. If we have a difference of opinion, how would a meeting just between you and me in my office solve anything? That's why
I was trying to follow procedure before we went any farther.
Correct.
I've looked at the quotes, and I respect what Joe and Ray have come up with. I think that it was fair, and I think the rest of the council, I don't think we need another meeting, as far as I'm concerned.
Well,
Looking at it, did you look at the quotes?
I had a very brief chance to look at it. I don't know the conditions. I
but
don't know the
you
routes.
guys have not
That's
seen
what
the
I couldn't-
quotes that I got under freedom of information today.
Not.
And that's
I
where the
put it together,
discrepancies
Steve.
lie.
Steve, I put it together. I have.
I said they didn't, not you.
Okay.
I'm talking about the councilman because I just got it today. I couldn't include it in the packet to them. So, you're saying without even looking at that I'm looking for an answer here.
I trust that you got a fair quote, an honest quote, and it was provided. The staff did their job in providing you an honest quote, and they're not picking on you.
The city has no benefit to turn you away when you're gonna build 1 or 2 houses in the city limits. They have no benefit, so
Okay, I've heard from Mark and I've heard from Jeremy. I'm still waiting. I got 3 other councilmen I'd like to.
I'd like to see the rest of the papers you have there.
Okay, thank you.
I'd like to see him too.
Okay, thank you.
It seems reasonable, Lee's recommendation, just to take this off the television and put it into an office and see if you can come up with some answers. So I don't know if the rest of the staff is willing to do that, but.
We're willing to do whatever you request us to do. We have a difference of opinion based on those quotes, so.
I guess for me, I just need more information. Like I said, I just got this packet this morning from you, and I read through it, but I haven't had a chance to talk to Joe or Ray or anybody about it.
And you didn't see any of the.
I haven't seen the paperwork that you have either.
And I think it's important to see that.
I can't make a decision one way or the other.
Right.
On what to do because I don't have all the information to do that.
So I would be willing to do that.
What was the quote? How much money are we talking about?
Pardon?
How much was the quote?
Well, the original quote was $15,600, and then I got one for $8,000. That was going.
Okay, so what we'll do is we'll set up a meeting.
It's pretty
Between
complicated.
between two council and the manager and the superintendent and Mr. Spera.
Okay. Fine. Time?
You will,
We
Ray,
we gotta go back on your
Right,
schedules and
We'll go back and look at
Yeah.
schedules.
Trish will get a hold of you to
Okay.
try to set something up.
Thank you.
Okay, does anyone else from the public wish to address the council?
Don Charleboy, Norway Township. I came here because I was interested in the 4-lane highway and the 3-lane highway, just to get some information on it. But I just have one question. Has the phone numbers in the city of Norway been changed without, our church over here, our phone number has been changed. Our secretary didn't know it, our pastor didn't know it, and so we're changing our numbers, changing everything we do, but it's been changed.
I haven't heard anything about that.
I was just wondering if there was a new
Mary,
setup or something.
Haven't heard anything.
Oh, who
Are you
getting your phone?
563?
I think, don't we get it through a bundle, Ray, through the city?
I don't know, I have to check. Are you with the city?
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't know why we would all of a sudden change.
Well, I was here for the other thing, and the pastor asked me, geez, he said, maybe you might want to just ask somebody down there.
Have you called in a trouble ticket or anything like that? No. All right, let's start that way.
What's the address?
Did you get notification that it changed, or how do you know it?
The secretary said, and the pastor said, we have a new phone number, and nobody knows anything why it changed.
What's your address down there?
I think the church is 815 Iron Street.
We'll look into it.
Okay, yeah, we're just curious about it, and if,
Not that I know of, that there's no reason it should have changed.
okay, oh, that's what we thought too.
Usually you'd have to request it to have it changed.
Right, okay,
So let's look into it.
yeah,
We'll get in
I'll
touch
be in
with you.
touch with you.
Okay.
Okay, thanks. Thanks.
Thank you. Anybody else?
Is there any possible way that you could put in with the utility bill about this road diet thing? I found out about this a week ago. I'm a business owner in this town, and I just find it very odd that I just found out about this a week ago. Obviously, your citizens don't know, and your business owners don't know, and in my opinion, it should be brought to the citizens of Norway's attention that you're considering doing this thing, and I do not believe that it should be just up to the council to make this decision. That's just my opinion.
We did try to get it out, that we've announced it at the last couple of council meetings. There was something in the current, I believe, that it was going to be.
I know, but you just put stuff, my thing is, if you put it in with the city bill, you just put stuff in with the city bills all the time.
Okay.
I mean, it would just be something, a lot of people don't get the current. I don't get the current. I mean, and I do watch the television, but, if you put it in with the city bill, like I said, I don't think that this is something that the city council should be deciding. I think you should bring it up to the vote of the people of this town, because you're affecting their livelihood, not just you guys's.
Lynn,
My
when I
opinion.
brought that up to Jeremy about it's a vote of the council, what I was intending is that the people that are not speaking up need to call the council members and tell them if they don't want to come up here and say what they got to say, they need to confront the councilmen so we know exactly how the public feels.
I've been
I
Yeah.
didn't mean it to say that
Oh.
we're making a decision. We have to make the decision, but that was said so that the public calls their council people and let them know how they feel if they're not here tonight.
Because the people, I talked to a lot of people in this last week, and they knew nothing about it. They looked at me like I was speaking Spanish. I said, they want to take 2 of our lanes away and make it 2 lanes and 1 in the middle. So, like I said, I think if you put it in with the city bill, that it will help a lot in
Right there. Lynn,
serving, huh?
Daily News.
But that's just my opinion,
Okay.
so,
Thank you.
thank you.
Does anyone from the else wish to address the council? Okay, Lee.
Complaint. The ordinance for mess in yards, garbage and alleyways, I see it finally got taken care of, but it shouldn't have to get that bad. As you come into town on US 8 by Danielson's greenhouse, there was that house on the corner. You could have gone in there and probably got half a dozen bales of hay out of it. But I see it finally got cut, and it's a very, very poor image where you come into town and you see something like that. And most of these places, I want to say about every 3 or 4 blocks, you have a place that's totally out of control with weeds, high grass, and basically junk too. And most of these places are for sale. I would think that the people who have these houses for sales going through a realtor would take care of these issues. Because I'm not going to go and look at a house where the grass is 2 feet high if it's for sale. It's presentation. We've got to be on top of this a little quicker. I know our tax assessor goes around and writes these complaints up unless I complain about my neighbor or you complain about your neighbor. nothing gets done. There's no reason in the world why our city employees, and even police, especially police, as they're riding around town, they see something. What is so hard to mention it to Mr. Pickard, and he can get it taken care of?
I don't, this case, I don't know if they did or not, but I know that in times they do, because when you read the complaint report, a number of them are initiated by police.
But there are so many places around town now. People aren't doing it, and it looks like crap.
That one in particular.
It's a very, very poor image for this town. Very poor.
That one was a bank repo. It shouldn't affect it, but that's.
Well, they're too late on it. I mean, we gotta get a way to do this quicker, to get this done quicker. I think I had one other thing here too.
Ray, on that, how long does the process take from?
7 days from the time we write the letter is what the ordinance reads. We could, we'd have to actually change the date or the time frame in the ordinance. But like you're saying, it depends on when it's reported, and who's reporting it. And we do talk to everybody about, if you see something, let us know. I know that the banks, they're not immune. We send them the letters as well.
Oh, I know if I was selling a place, I'd keep the grass cut to make it look halfway decent, and it's just, there's so many places around town, I just get disgusted about it. I guess the wheels turn slow. That's all I have.
Dr. Hayes.
Oh, and it's nice to see all you people here. I wish we'd get more at more meetings.
Dr. Hayes.
No comments.
Mark.
I got a couple, hats off to the gardening club or whoever's doing the main street with the flowers and up by the spring. I think it looks good. I was talking to Ronnie DiMinardi before. He had a good comment on the highway project to keep the speed down, is maybe to put a couple of those flashing signs through the state that says how fast you're going. I think that would really help because I had the same idea. I'm hoping that we keep stepping forward on getting the blocks picked. I know I read the executive session of the 10 blocks that we're going to be crushing and shaping. I'm hoping that that gets done in a timely manner and that we can be bidding that out when the Highway 2 project is going through, because I think it's going to be a good benefit on the cost. That's all I got.
Chris.
I'd just like to bring up, people making their comments about the 3 to 4 lane conversion on the highway. It's, regardless of what my personal feelings are, what the personal feelings are of the council, we want to hear from the people and base our decision on what we hear from the residents of the city. So for those that didn't make it here tonight, please get a hold of us and let us know what your thoughts are on this project. That's all I have.
The only thing I have tonight was just to kind of correct something I've been hearing grumblings about in the public. Over at Turi Tax, they're redoing their parking lot. That's not being paid for by the city. Turi Tax did that on their own while the people were here. So it's not city dollars, tax dollars going to someone's private parking lot. It was all done. They did a separate contract with Morin and Backel to do that while they were here because they could get a better rate.
Actually, I'll add to that too, because that project that's going on downtown right now with the parking lots and the alleys, there have been lots of comments, and I've heard them even today, that why is the city, again, paying for the alleys to be done? But this was through a grant that we had, and a lot of the businesses benefited from this. Lori was one of them. My building benefited because I had some work done. There were some other businesses that benefited from this work as well. We all paid for those upgrades ourselves, but we got a better deal because the project was happening in town at this time. So besides having our parking lots and our alleys done for the businesses themselves benefited from having some projects done.
Joe, how's the river looking?
It's reducing. We're down to one unit. Unit number one's running by itself right now. But we had a little problem with a storm on Sunday afternoon at 4:30. Lightning had struck in the area and took the plant out. I had to go in and get it back up. But other than that, things are going fine.
Anything else?
No, that's all.
Mary? Tricia? Ray?
I have nothing.
And we have Larry filling in for his brother Jay this evening. Do you have anything you'd like to?
I got one other thing, Ray, and I'd like this, it was brought up tonight, and I had that thought for a long time, is I think that first block on Iron Street alongside of Brian's Body Shop, we need to possibly look at that and go with a one-way on that first block. I think that would solve a lot of problems.
Yeah, that would. Okay. We have no closed session this evening. With that, I'm looking for a motion to adjourn.
I make a motion, we adjourn.
Second.
Motion made by Mark, supported by Chris. Roll call.
Mr. Oja?
Yes.
Mr. Menegini?
Yes.
Dr. Hayes?
Yes.
Mr. Gottstein?
Yes.
Mr. Babalani?
Yes.
Thank you, ladies and gentlemen.